So, hello. Thank you for joining us to talk about the Conservation and Adaptation Resources Toolbox, or CART. Um, and we're here to talk specifically about CART within a fire and climate adaptation lens. So I'm Alex. I'm a senior at the University of Arizona. I'm studying microbiology. I'm originally from Tucson, and I've been with CART since 2023, at the beginning of CART's involvement with the fire and climate adaptation community. And I joined CART because I really love the outdoors. I grew up outside, and I really want to learn to be more involved in climate change from a solutions-based perspective rather than more of a doomsday, here's everything that's going wrong perspective.
Yeah, and I am Jacob. I'm a junior at the University of Arizona, majoring in environmental and water resource economics and computer science. I'm originally from Flagstaff, Arizona, and I've been with CART since May of 2024. And I joined CART to explore my passion for the environment in a new way that both of my majors don't really encounter. Yeah, I wanted to gain new skills outside of my majors, and I wanted to create things that had a meaningful impact on climate change and wildfire issues. So we're going to start talking about key issues with fire and climate adaptation that we're dealing with in the modern age. So first of all, fire regimes are changing as a result of climate change and in some areas human development. Ecosystems are not equipped to withstand these changes with how fast they are occurring. Additionally, climate change effects are creating uncharacteristic fire behavior and fire conditions. And there's a general trend towards larger, higher severity wildfires, but it's unique for every landscape and it's just very unpredictable. And also, adapting to new ecosystem conditions in a climate change world is a completely new field. How can managers create an adaptation plan for their specific needs?
So with CART and fire practitioners and land managers, there's been a common trend of expressing the need for more collaboration across geographical and jurisdictional scales, especially between climate scientists and fire practitioners as well as land managers. And they want spaces to connect with others who are addressing similar conservation challenges and the ability to share concise lessons learned, as well as institutional knowledge with other stakeholders and peers who may be facing similar challenges. And CART wanted to be able to fill the space to develop digestible, informative materials focused on implementing management actions that help adapt to changing fire regimes using climate-informed methods. A lot of fire material out here does not use a climate change focus, or if it does, it's very limited in its scale and knowledge, and developing digestible information is a way in which we can fill the knowledge gaps between the fire world and the climate adaptation community.
So how does CART meet these manager needs? There are four main categories, of which Alex and I mainly deal with two. So first we have knowledge sharing, like case studies, webinars, and workshops. Then there's tool development and collaborative action, and then youth development, internships and fellowships that Alex and I are a part of. And the knowledge sharing primarily happens through case studies, which are primarily authored by interns just like us. And then we also have webinars and workshops as well. And so we also come in through that youth development internship for us specifically, and there's fellowships as well.
So the case studies that Jacob and I write are focused on communicating transferable lessons learned from on-the-ground management research projects. These are focused to connect land managers and stakeholders and share outcomes, tools, and resources not otherwise available, as well as reduce information barriers between fire and climate information. And these projects range from a small project scale focus to a landscape level. So I personally have worked on projects that have spanned only a few hundred acres to projects that have spanned thousands of acres.
So we thought that a good way to kind of highlight some of our work would be to pick out a specific case study important to us. And for me, I chose my case study titled Prescribed Burning and Thinning Saves Yosemite's Giant Sequoias. This case study meant a lot to me because I love Yosemite National Park a lot. As a climber, it's very personal to me, and just hiking around and being there is absolutely magical. And I wanted to learn more about how they specifically do fuel management in their park. And so in Yosemite National Park, there are areas with 10 times the historic amount of ground fuels, 125, uh, roughly, excuse me, 125 like tons per acre, as opposed to about 10 to 15 tons per acre. And also, additionally, climate change is creating hotter and drier summers in that specific region. And so these have culminated in a lot of large, high severity wildfires in Yosemite National Park, as well as just in the region at large. And the endangered giant sequoias are incredibly threatened by these large, high severity wildfires. And actually, in the past 5 years, we've seen 20% of all these giant sequoias lost in these wildfires. And so Yosemite National Park is home to a lot of the remaining groves. And so obviously that's a high priority. And they have employed many fuel treatments to reduce ground and ladder fuels, including prescribed burning and thinning. And so we actually got to see uh, these treatments in practice during the Washburn fire in 2022, where a fire actually threatened the giant sequoias in the Mariposa Grove. But luckily, as a result of these fuel treatments, there was no crown fire in the grove, and there was 28% lower fire severity in the grove as well. And most importantly, no giant sequoias were lost in the fire, and local communities and ecosystems were completely preserved.
So the case study that I chose to highlight is one focused on novel approaches to fuel breaks and invasive species management in the Sonoran Desert. As I mentioned, I'm from Tucson. This project was done in Apache Junction, which is about 2 hours north of me. And so this was a project that was really close to home and was also a project that was developed by someone who's local to the area and was kind of just experimenting in his backyard and being able to partner with state and county organizations in order to help knowledge share and develop different approaches to invasive species management. The Sonoran Desert is not adapted to fire. We have a lot of hot climates persisting with more precipitation variability as climate change kind of takes effect in Tucson. And so these invasive plants threaten desert ecosystems by creating a more frequent fire regime. The Sonoran Desert is a very vegetation limited landscape with very sparse plant growth. And so this land manager used a lot of mulch to stop the spread of invasive species, as well as targeting invasive vine fuels to establish more fuel breaks in the desert. Torching methods, which he basically had like a bunch of propane backpacks. And so weather patterns influenced using this treatment because it is so hot and it is so dry down here. And something that was very unique about this project was that he considered plant relationships to guide his management decisions. So he looked at different tree growth and the understory below it and how those plants interacted with each other, as well as how they historically look naturally in the landscape. So if there were dead ironwood trees that were supporting the growth of small native grasses and things, he would leave those alone and go treat somewhere else. And so Jacob and I have completed, between the two of us, about 12 case studies, and these are all of the ones that we have completed, as well as all of the ones that are in development currently. And so some larger lessons learned that we have put together for you throughout this internship is that there are fire needs throughout the Southwest that are resulting from changing fire regimes, which has become a widespread problem. There's different ecosystems within the Southwest. It's not all just desert. So there are forests that need more frequent low to mixed severity fire and grasslands that need mixed to high severity fire. While deserts, we've noticed, seem to have no real need for fire or very minimal fire needs. And so without paying attention to these climate patterns and fuel conditions, all of these different ecosystems are threatened by uncharacteristic fire behavior patterns that are outside of the norm that you would expect.
And so shifting towards climate, we also want to take a look at climate change and these lessons learned. Climate change effects are super complex, and it really depends on the landscape and the topic you're looking at. They're inconsistent across different landscapes, but there are some general trends for the Southwest, but these are not a direct rule of thumb. But generally, we do see drier conditions, shifting precipitation patterns, especially, and this can have some large negative effects for fire because of things like decreased snowpack and soil moisture levels. And then also just increased drought conditions also exacerbating these fires. And yeah, these lead to larger, higher severity wildfires in general. And so unpredictable climate impacts can change the way that ecosystems recover from wildfires as well. As I mentioned, one case study that I had was about soil moisture, where we found that climate impacts on soil moisture have really changed the way that certain landscapes recover from fire, and that's like a new field that we really need to be considering for these restoration efforts. And shifting on to climate adaptation, the real lesson learned here is that climate adaptation comes in many different forms for specific goals. Decisions are informed by manager goals, climate projections, funding, regulations, etc. There's obviously tons of considerations that go into these. There are certain climate adaptation frameworks that can be very useful for identifying the correct strategy for your landscape. The National Park Service uses the RAD framework, while the U.S. Forest Service uses resistance, resilience, transformation, or transition. And these frameworks are kind of a way to identify strategies based on your priorities and what the landscape is going through. And additionally, another theme that we've noticed throughout a lot of these case studies is that accurate climate modeling tools that are applicable across many landscapes are becoming incredibly useful. And the more accurate that we can make these, the better that managers can adapt to new climate conditions. So yeah, managers can use these modern tools and frameworks to identify the best climate solutions for their specific goals.
So throughout this internship, as well as gaining a lot of knowledge about fire and climate adaptations from multiple different perspectives, there were also a lot of professional development opportunities and science communication and writing skills that Jacob and I learned throughout the course of our time with CART. I attended SWAF 2024 in February and helped work on a poster presentation for Sur Southwest 2024 that happened in September, as well as helping to develop all of these case studies that were produced. I personally worked on about 8 case studies and had really in-depth involvement with the academic writing review process. I saw a lot of these case studies through from the very beginning to publication. And so this has also helped my science communication skills from a lot of different scales. I talk about my job to my friends a lot, and so talking about my job to them is way different than talking to a fire manager about what I do with CART. And so being able to develop these transferable science communication skills has been really helpful for me, even though I'm not necessarily a ecologist in any sense. It has helped me use that code switching skill in my personal field as a microbiology major.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to echo that same sort of sentiment. Definitely a lot of professional development opportunities with CART. I attended SARE Southwest 2024 and presented a poster, but I also really enjoyed like attending all of the presentations and choosing ones that I found really interesting and sitting through and learning something new that I never would have otherwise. Um, and then yeah, the writing skills and environmental knowledge are really something that I personally was missing with my more economics based major. And then obviously my computer science major doesn't really deal with this topic at all. And so coming into this with a passion for learning how to use these writing tools and just gain more environmental knowledge in general, CART really helped me do that. And through producing these case studies, the experience-based skills have been super, super helpful.
So We end with CART in April, which is in a couple weeks from now. Past this, I actually graduate from the University of Arizona. I'm getting my Bachelor of Science degree, and I'm going to continue pursuing further education. I really want to get into environmental microbiology, and I really hope to use a lot of the environmental knowledge that I've learned with CART to further some of my to expand my knowledge base and kind of bring together what I studied and what I've done with my time with CART. And I'm going to continue to explore Tucson as well. I'm really into going outside and hiking as well as just kind of seeing what's out there.
Yeah, and for me, I currently have an internship designing a database for a river trash pollution project in Tucson, Arizona. Sadly, that experience will be coming to an end at the end of this semester, but I'm also looking forward to graduating at the end of next year. Long term, I think I'm looking for a career in kind of that intersection of data science and natural resources. And so the CART skills are going to come in handy a lot in terms of the science communication, the interdisciplinary lenses that we have to adopt throughout a lot of these experiences, and just the general professional development as well. And overall, I just want to continue enjoying the outdoors through backpacking, climbing, mountain biking, really whatever, you name it.
Well, that concludes what we have done with our time with CART, and now Jacob will be in person to take questions.